Welcome to this HTML tutorial. This is about laying out a page. We're going to see how we can do that. So I did a course a couple of days ago within the HTML, and there's obviously new ways of doing stuff. So we're going to look at laying out a page using divs, using CSS as well. Just going through the various issues. We're just going to try and keep this pretty natural. It shouldn't take longer than half an hour, hopefully. First thing we need is to download an HTML editor. So I'm going to use brackets here. So you can do a search for brackets. Make sure it's brackets HTML, otherwise you'll put brackets like putting shelves up or that type of thing. We don't want to be doing that. We want an HTML editor. So here we go. We have brackets here. Let's click on the download button for brackets. Wait for it to download. Let's download it onto into downloads here. There we go. Save that, and then open that one up when it's downloaded. And install brackets. You could use Notepad as well if you want to. It all depends on the type of HTML editor that you want. Okay, so when you install brackets, it appears on your computer. So let's see if I can find it. There it is here. So I've got the brackets app. There we go. It's asking us to change it. So what you do is you should install the brackets as normal. When you've installed it, I'm just going to cancel that because I've already got it installed. But when you've installed it, basically it will appear. Okay. And so what I'm just going to do is just close this one off here. All right, so you normally get a page that looks like so. It just gives you a quick rundown of the different types of tags you can type in HTML. So this tutorial will go through some of the basics as well. Of course, if there's any, there's probably HTML whizzes out there, and so you'd probably have some tips and comments and suggestions or alterations or adjustments to the way that I'm going through this. So let's just see if we can start. So if we firstly create a new page, we're going to go to File and New. So we've got a new document here. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what I'm typing. The first thing we're going to type is a document type definition. So I'm just going to type in doc type. Okay. And I'm going to type in HTML. Okay, so as guidance, brackets gives you a guidance for the doc type over here. You can see if I scroll up there, you've got the doc type. There's a declaration here, HTML. That's great. So let's just go back to our untitled one. Now, every HTML page needs HTML tags. So let's put them in, shall we? So HTML, oops, I like to write them in lowercase, HTML, opening and closing. Now, if you have just automatically installed brackets and it's putting up a, the closing tags, then what you can do is under, if I can find the section here, debug, there's an option that says open preferences file. And in the preferences file here, if I zoom back, there's certain things that you might want to do with this here. For instance, I think my theme is the dark theme. Smart indent I've got is false. And then I've got this little section here for closing tags. Can you see that one here? This closing tag section. So you just want to add this little bit of code in. You add that little bit of code in, and every time you write a tag, it won't close it. If you want to keep them open, just don't include that close tag section, or make sure it says true. I hope that makes sense there. So I'm just going to close this one down here. I finished with that one there, and I've finished with this one here. That's good. Yeah, I just want to go back to untitled here at the top. Let me just close this one here down. Oops, sorry. I thought I was closing these down here. Oh, sorry, over here. That'd help. And this one here, I'm closing down as well. All right then. Okay, so let's just add in extra HTML code that we'll need. If you've now removed that auto close brackets thing, it can be a bit annoying now. Every HTML page needs a head, so I'm going to pop the head in there and a closing head tag. And I don't know if you've noticed here, every time I do an opening tag, you see I've got my opening tag here with my angle brackets. You can find on your keyboard just by the comma and the, if I can just make sure there we go. By the comma and the full stop, you can see here the angle brackets. So you can use those angle brackets there. And then I've also got a / just here to close off those tags. So just bear that in mind. So when you have an opening tag, if there's a closing tag, you put the / before the name of the tag when you close the tag. I hope that makes sense. Good, okie dokie. So let's just see if we can add in some more details. We'll need a body tag, one opening and one closing. Great, okay, so we've got HTML, head and body. So I'm just going to make some space in the head and space in the body here. Before I continue, I'm going to save the file. So let's do that. So if I go up to File and Save As, find a location, I'm going to put this on my desktop here, and I've got a file called a folder called HTML. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to delete that folder here. That's it. So I do a new folder. I call this folder HTML. And then inside that folder, if I double click, then I need to give a file name. So the file name we're going to call is index, INDEX, index.html. So that's going to be the home page for your website. So this will be the first page there. If it's a template, you could call it template or blank or whatever. But I'm going to just call this one index here. So click on the save button, and then we've done so. You can see all of your tags there have now turned to blue. Good. All right. So next stage we'll do. So we're going to just type in a title on the document. So I'm not going to go into search engine optimization, but needless to say, or I just want to say that your title is one of the most single important things when it comes to Google finding your page online. So for instance, if your title here, and you do a closing tag here like so. Great, and then it's automatically closing this here. That's good. So if you're just wanting to know what that's all about, let me just zoom back here. And if I swap back to Google, there we go, brackets here. If I go to Google, if I type in, say, for instance, I don't know, HTML training Hammersmith, okay, and then I sort of scroll down here. And let's have a look here. I've got these like things here, and I've got programming HTML course here. Here we go, computer tutoring. I give that a click. This here, you see, is the title of the page. If I go up here and you see here, that is the title here of the page. So it's really important to get your titles right. You probably want to use a tool. I use one called Longtail Pro. It helps us understand basically about what keyword terms people are looking for before I pop them onto a page, okay? But this is mainly about layout, so I'm not going to spend too long doing that, but let's just swap back here, and we've got this here. Great, excellent. So also in the head portion, if I zoom in, we're going to put in a style tag. So I'm just going to go over here and type in an opening style and a closing style tag. If I do, now I've saved this as an HTML file. When I do a / here, the style automatically appears there. That's great. So now what I need to do is I need to write certain containers in here to make this look like to help us understand basically how we can control a web page by putting things in boxes or containers. So you put all of your content, all of your text, all of your images into these containers here. So just to help us understand, let me just pause that for a second. Okay, so say for instance now we've got like a page, that'll do, like so, okay, so there's a container that goes in like that, yeah, so that'd be like sort of the main container. And then what we'll do is we're going to put other little mini containers in here, like this one here will be for our sort of banner section, maybe with a little navbar section sort of here, like so. So you see what I mean? So the basic understanding is putting things in boxes, and these boxes will be known as divs. You know, we'll have another main container about here, and then we'll pot it, and in that container then we'll put 3 columns in, you know, and we'll try and colour the background so it makes it nice and easy to see here. There we go. See, I should have drawn this one using the touchscreen. There we go, that's it. You get the idea basically, and say we got this one here at the bottom, and then this last bit here is going to be the footer, like so. So there we go. So that's sort of like the drawing. I know it's a bit of a mess there, but you can get a rough idea of how that sort of works there. Thank you very much, Adobe Illustrator. Let's swap back to our HTML. Nice and clean now it looks, doesn't it there? So let's just put sort of the boxes that we need in here. So firstly, we're going to need an outer container. So let's just do that, shall we? So we're going to type in div, which is zoom in so you can see here. So the div here stands for a division of code, basically, to do a space. We're going to give this one here a particular name. We're going to call it an ID, and we're literally going to call this one outer underscore container. I know it's a long-winded name, but there we go. Now you see this has got an opening tag here and it's got a closing tag. You see if I click in the div here and the opening one, I can see its closing tag here. It's important to keep an eye on the opening and the closing tags. That's great, excellent. So with this div outer container, just so we can instantly know how we're going to control that, we do that at the top here in this style. So let's say, for instance, we write in some texting. We're just going to type in test. That's all we're going to write here. Then up in this style bit here, we're going to type in hashtag and literally type in outer underscore container. So it's exactly the same as this outer container here. So we've typed in outer container. We're going to do an open brace. I press enter a couple of times and a closing brace. That's good. Now inside these two braces here, so inside this and this brace here, so basically inside in this little section here, we will be typing all of our CSS code. So let's carry on with that one there. So let me just click, just make sure they're ready to type. So what I want to do, well, the first thing I'm going to do is just going to change the background's hyphen color. Notice the color is without a U. So for our friends across the pond, much more familiar to everyone over here in the UK. Ooh, well, notice there's a little tool top appears. So for instance, if I've typed background color and it recognizes it's here, I can press enter on the keyboard to finish that off. And I get some nice colors here. I can use some of these here, or I can use what they call hexadecimal colors, which I'll come on to later on. I might do that on another video, but I just think for this one here, I'm just going to choose, I don't know, a gray or something like this dark gray here will do. And this is most important. Anytime you finish, then make sure you put in a semicolon. So you can see here, I have a semicolon to terminate that line. That is great. Excellent. All right. So far, so good. What I need to do is now save this again. So I'm just going to do Control S on the keyboard to save that. Oh, I don't want to save this doom screen actually, so let me just close that one off here. So I'm just going to go to File and Save. I have to do this a long way around. File and Save. That's good. So I now want to test this in the browser. So I'm going to File. Now, if you do have experimental live preview on, then just turn it off. Make sure there's not a tick in there. We're going to go to live preview. If I just zoom back, that will then open up a page and we can see the index page. And this is what the container here looks like, basically. It's just got test. It's a gray background. Yeah, that's good. So if I just swap back to my code, there it is here. Let's just swap back to the browser. Code and browser. So I can swap back between the two. That's good. Say, for instance, I didn't have the background color of dark gray here. So what I'm just going to do is just go up to the top here. I'm just going to, can I just do forward? Oh, I have to do, I'm going to comment that out here at the top. That's it. So I'm just using the /* to comment out this bit so the browser ignores that section. Just going to save that. There we go. And then just swap back to the others. You see here, even though I've got no formatting on this here, the browser has automatically, this is Chrome I'm using, has automatically added like black text, Times New Roman. There's even gaps happening there. In fact, you saw the gap when we had the gray. So let me just swap back and uncomment this section here. There we go. Save, swap back, and you can see I've got the gray here. I can immediately, we're starting to create a web page. That's great. So what we need to do is we need to create a series of containers. Now this is our outer container here that we're going to use and put all of our pages on. So let me just zoom back here. I don't need the word test in, so let's have a look here. So I need a bit for the top of the page, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tab that in a bit, add another div in, okay? Call it ID equals, and I'm going to call this one banner. So that's going to be the banner at the top of the page. And I'm going to put banner in here so I know that's the banner, okay? All right, I press enter here. If yours is auto-indenting, that's fine. Mine just gets rid of the auto-indent, which is a bit of a pain. Maybe I can indent it afterwards. Yeah, that's good. Brilliant. So that's the top of the page. Then what I want is the maybe the container or the body part of the page. So I'm just going to put in div id equals and I put let's have a look here, content of the page, and that's where I'm going to just do my main content in here. That's good. And I want a footer, so I'm going to put a div id equals footer. There we go. So it's important to understand that these here are just containers. If I click on the first one, you can see it's showing that it's closing off each one of these here. If I click on the outer container, that's this one here. That's great. Now what I can do is at the top here, where the outer container is dark gray, I can add colors on these other ones just to help us really understand. So the first one is a hash. And I didn't mention too much here. Let me just really highlight this hash here. The reason I've typed the hash in is because I've used an ID. So for instance, the next one I'm going to use is banner. So I'm using ID here. So these two here are related, basically. So you can, so those two are related, basically. So if I just, there we go. Those two there are related. So just bear that in mind when we're typing it in. So this one's called banner. So I'm going to type in banner here. To a curly bracket, another curly bracket, go up and across. And I'm going to change the background color. There we go. I'm going to call this one an aqua. That looks good color. Brilliant. About our main content, let's go down here. Hash. Let's just move this down a second so you can see this one here. So that's going to be contents. Okay. And again, the background color. So it doesn't mean to say I'm going to have these background colors all the time. It's just so you can really see them. Blanched almond. Oh, there's so many weird background colors in there. Coral. That looks a good one. That's good. And the footer. Let's go down in hashtag footer. Remember the names are matching up to the names of the IDs. There we go. And then background color. There we go. And I'm just going to call this one gray. Good. If I save that, swap back to here. Swap back here. And you can see the banner. Let me scroll back so you can see. So you can see the different banner. You can see the banner, the main content, and the footer. Because there's no other text as well within the I've got to hide that one now. Because there's no other text as well in the outer container. For instance, if I clicked on the outer container and typed in some text in here and go, you see, I can see, or some text in here, some text in, I can see the gray of that outer container there. But I am not going to use that one there. That's good. And this is the advantage of when it now comes to using containers, because whatever I size the outer container, whatever width I put on it, it will affect the banner, the content, and the footer. So I'll give you an example here. Say, for instance, I go up to the top here and I enter a width. Just zoom in so you can see. So I've got a width of a certain width. If I type in 800 px, px standing for pixels, I swap back. You can see that because the outer banner is also 800 pixels, so the outer container is 800 pixels, the banner, the main content, and the footer is also 800 pixels. If I think I want to be a bit more flexible in my layout, I want to use percentages, I can type in 80%. So you can see there I've typed in 80%. So when I save that and swap back to my made page, zoom out, then this becomes 80% of the width of the browser window. So if I start adjusting, you can see the banner automatically adjusts in size. So as I go back, and if I change that to 800 pixels like I did before and swap back, you can see the banner is fixed in size. So it doesn't matter how big the browser window is, the banner is, or the banner, what am I saying banner, the outer container of this div is 800 pixels. That's good. So I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this so that this is percentage. Good, and save that. All right. So what do I now need to do? Well, I now need to, inside my main content, I want to split it up into 3 separate columns. So if you remember my Illustrator file, I've got, this is that little main content. I want to do these 3 separate columns next to each other. Yeah, so we can have a quick go at that here. So let's just swap back. So the first thing I'll do is I'll put the columns in. So if I just go down here, let me just zoom in so you can see. I just want to try and make it nice and clear for the text. I'm just going to press enter a few times to make some space. I no longer need main content. So if you just delete main content. And basically each 3 columns are going to be the same width. So I'm going to use a different CSS selector for that. And it's a selector called a class. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's just put this divs in again. So I'm going to call div, but instead of saying ID equals content, I'm going to say class equals column. Like so, yeah, and then close that one off. Okay, so as these 3 are the same, I'm just going to select this one here, copy that, and then go down, press enter, paste, press enter, paste, and just delete a couple up. There we go. There we go, that's nice and tidy. So these 3 here, if I select downwards, I'm just going to tab them in one. So these here are 3 classes. Now what's the difference between an ID and a class? Well, basically a class, I can use the same name, I can repeat the name and use a selector to target that. Whereas with an ID, well, for every page you'd only have one unique ID. So let's see if we can do that. So if we go up to the top and see if we can use this. Now to access a class or to target a class, what we're going to do for this is we're going to press full stop and then the name of the class, which is column. So the full stop here, if I just show you. So this full stop here pertains to this class. If I move down here, just down move a little bit. Oops. Let's just move that. So yeah, so this full stop here, okay, pertains to this class here. Yeah. So the full stop to the class, the hash to the ID, the full stop to the class. That's great. So what I need to do now is write in the column things that I want it to be. Now it's already inside the ID content. The content is picking up the width of the banner. So what I want it to do is I want each of the columns here to have the same width. So I wanted the same width here. So here I would set up the width of 33.33%. So it's 33.33%. So that's the width of each one of those columns there. Brilliant, excellent. And so I might not do this, but just so we can see, what I'd like to do here is add a little border. So I'm going to add a border in, and I'm going to have a 1 pixel solid and then a black border. So you can see I've written the border here, 1 pixel solid black, and that just adds a border and it allows you to see the width basically. So it allows us to see pages here. So let's have a look here. So that's great. So I've got 1 pixels here, 1 pixel here, and it's 33% of the width. Okay, so far so good. But what's actually happening here is a bit weird. I tell you what, to make this a little bit more sensible, let's put some content in here. So at the moment there's nothing in here. So I'm going to call this one column 1. And if we go down here and call this one column 2. And down here again, and column 3. Okay, let's save that one. So if I just zoom back so you can see, so I've got these 3 columns in here, column 1, column 2, and column 3. Yeah, so let's just swap back and you can see, so I've got the 3 columns here, but you see it's stacking 1 potato, 2 potato, it's stacking one on top of the other, or one below the other. Well, I don't want that to happen. I want it to float left and right. I want this column 2 to come to the right of column 1, and I want this column 3 to come to the right of column 2. So how do I do that? Let's swap back to the code. This is what a lot of people ask me here, so it's quite straightforward. Let me just zoom in so you can see. What we're doing here is if we go to the new line, we're going to add in a new command here, new property called float. Okay, so that allows basically any element to float left or right. we're going to, or none basically. So we're going to go left here, okay, and press save. And let's see what that's done, yeah? So if we just zoom back and swap back, and you can see that I've got column 1, I've got column 2, and then column 3. I think it's maybe because these ones are here are a little wider. The border's added an extra pixel on it so you can see. So let's just see if we can solve that problem, just going back. And I'm just going to remove the border, to be honest. No, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make the column just a little narrower here. Let's just take them back to 32.33%. Just zoom back, and there we go. We can see now column 1, column 2, and column 3. We've got the border. We'll sort the border out in a second when we remove it. But yeah, if, say, for instance, we went back here and let's change that to 23% just to see what happens with the footer. You can see here, column 1, column 2, column 3, this footer text is floating to the, you see what I mean, right of it. Or on the other hand, column 3 is floating to the left of footer. So I want this floating, this bit here, float left, to stop after this last column here. So how do I do that? Well, there's a couple of ways. There's rather a hacky way. They're both little hacky ways, to be honest. One of which is using a line break. Let's do that way first. The other way is by using what is known as a pseudo class selector. So we'll have a look at that afterwards. So the line break is a bit of an old school way of doing it, but what we do with this is basically go over here at the end of the div, just here, make a new line, and then we're going to put in a line break, BR. We're going to add in an inline style, so the word style equals open quotation marks, and then we're going to clear the left float. Now, because this is our first open tag, I'll just explain a few things here. This word style basically is if you wanted to write style sheets, instead of you writing them at the top here, you can write them inside the tags. You can write them inside the tag there. That's great. Because this is an open tag as well, notice that I have this little / to finish off the tag there, okay? Alrighty. So that's great. Make sure it's saved. Oh, don't want to save this one here. Let's just zoom back. Make sure it's saved. Swap back. Oh, I don't want to save the zoomed element, sorry. Let's just go to File and Save. Let's do it that way, yeah. Swap back. And you can now see it's got column 1 floating to the left of column 2, floating to the left of column 3. Now footer is underneath. That's great. So we can now we can see that. That's good. So that's what I said. That was the old school way of doing it. All right. What about the newer way? Well, the newer way is so we don't have to add this new BR break in here. So that's the way we're going to do. So if we go up to the style sheets at the top, we're going to do a new line. And we're going to basically add in a pseudo class selector, basically. So we're going to type column. We're going to type in a colon. We're going to type the word in after. So after the last column, basically. Oops, sorry, I do apologize. It's actually container. Let's have a look here. So that's content. So it'll be contents. And then here, then after. So what do we want it to do after? Well, the first thing we want to have is we're going to have a content in of nothing. We're going to have the display added as a table. So it changes this display into a table. So it makes it more, so it's like a blocky element. And then we're going to clear left. So content, clear left. If I go down now to the bottom here, I can now get rid of this BR style clear left here. There's no need for that. Press delete. I'll try and keep my code tidy. That's it. Let's go up and save that. File and save. That's good. Let's scroll back, swap back to our thing. Oh, it's not working there. Let's have a look and see why that's not working here. So I've got, because this is an ID, I do apologize. So if I change this to a hash symbol, save that, swap back, and you can now see that this footer is underneath there. So my mistake is I had a column there before. It should have been hashtag. So to understand more about this and why this works, this is beyond really the scope of this video. Just type this in anyway and then it'll work. But if you want to understand more, then if you go to a website called W3 Schools, I'll here. Now this is fantastic for learning website design, etc. And if I go to under Learn CSS, and if I scroll down, actually if I make this a little bigger here, I can see a link. Now there's a link down at the bottom here. If I go under Website Layout, and if I go down to Web Layout, this is the basic main menu type thing, the way what we're going to create. If we go down to the floating and the float left, there we go. That's the nav bar. We'll come back to that. Here we go. So we've got this one. Content here. So clears and floats after the columns. Okay. We've got clear. They've got clear both here, but we've used clear left. Great. So now it's ready to start putting in some content, basically. So if we wanted, let's just get rid of this border here. I'm just going to delete that just at the top, because this video is getting on a little bit here. If I needed to maybe make some individual changes to each column here, I could also use IDs within the columns, but I don't want to do that. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to change this here to 33.33. So now I can swap back to make sure I go back to my page here. There we go. I've got column 1, column 2, and column 3. Now I've got no content in there, but the content will automatically expand. So things will expand basically. Say for instance, I wanted to put a banner in the top here. The video, so I could just create a quick banner for you guys, so I didn't waste your time there. So the banner, first thing is you need to make sure that the file that you're going to put in. So say for instance, I want my banner up here at the top. I'm going to pop an image in here. So let me just zoom in here. So I'm just going to go across. And I'm just going to type open square bracket, open square bracket, IMG for image, SRC for source equals, and then I can look for the banner side of the image. So depending on where your images are located. So what I'm going to do is type in images / elephant banner.jpg. Okay, so this is an open tag, so it's IMG to start, SRC equals, and if you type the following in, this will be the folder that the images are in, and then the name of the image, including the file extension in quotation marks. And then you have the /. So please take your time with this and pause the video if you're following along. So let's just make sure the image is in there. So I'm just going to very quickly, you can download the image from below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that if I go to my folders here and I find the elephant banner image, and let me just make sure it's in the right folder. So let's just copy it, and it's under desktop HTML. That's great. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a new folder and call the folder images. Make sure I spell it right. There we go. So images. There we go. I'm going to go into that folder, and then I'm just going to make sure I paste the elephant banner picture that I've just copied. So basically in the HTML folder here, I've got index, and then it's going to look for images, and inside images, it's elephant banner. I don't know why it's so big there. Let me just pause a second, sort that out. All right, back in the room there. So the elephant banner, I've just resorted that, and it's now a good size. So if I swap back to brackets, I can see the elephant banner here. That's good. If I save the page and then swap to my browser, and now I can see my banner here is at the top. Brilliant. Yeah, that's good. So that's the size of this picture here. Of course, the size here is be worthwhile sort of matching the colors, etc., because you can see my aquamarine is at the back here. I've also got a little gap here at the bottom that I might need to sort out. These can come from other files as well. Nice little tip is just make sure the background color of your page is the same as this banner here. So I'll just pause a second and just to give you it, the background color of this banner. Okay, back. So the background I've got the background. I'm not going to tell you, but just I'm going to show you. So if we just go back and let's just zoom in. So the banner there, where it says the background color for the banner, where is it here? Instead of aqua, which is going to just double click on aqua, type in the hash symbol, and then paste this number 81A9C2. That's the hexadecimal color for that banner. Then if we save it, swap back, and you can see it all sort of matches up, which is great. I think that was a flexible sort of side of thing as well. So yeah, it's good. That's good. I mean, there's a lot of options as well with this here, with the flexible side of things, because getting bigger is fine, but as soon as it gets lower than, say, I don't know, a certain amount of pixels, then we want it to stop sizing. So what can we do for that? So if we go back on the outer container, you have the width here. You can add something called the min width, like so. And that's the width, which will be 800 pixels, which should be the width of that banner that we created. Brilliant. So now what will happen is it will come and it will be stopped to a minimum width of 800, but then it becomes bigger here, like so. Yeah, that's good. A couple of extra things. So if I just go all in the outer container, remember all the width's controlled from the outer container here. I've got a minimum width of 800 pixels. So what I can also do is I can do stuff like centrally align it. So if you want to centrally align that, if you go and then we can type margin, hyphen, margin, colon, and then auto, and then a semicolon. So that will basically put that into the middle of the page. You can see now that this is in the center of the page here. Just a couple of nice little tips as well. Say, for instance, we've got a lot of text that we want to pop in here. We want to get a margin because at the moment the text is right up next to the edge here. So we want to get some margin in the text here. You just got to bear in mind when you put in the widths, etc. for the columns. So say, for instance, we add a padding on the column. So that's adding this one here. So let's say 1%. We need to basically drop this down by, say, 0.5% or so. Yeah. So instead of 33.33, it'll be along the ways of 32.83. Oops, like so. So we need to drop that down because the padding, if you can imagine, the box is, let me just go back so you can sort of see, or might need to do it even more actually. Let's just do down to 7.3. There we go. Oops, wow, 6.3. Padding is just good. Let's just drag it down completely to, it's for each column, that is. I see. So we might have to drag it down a little bit more. Let's just do to 30, saying, yeah, there we go. Because it's the padding on each side of them. So it's like 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%. So it needed to be more than 6%. We need to drop off of that to get that to work. So, yeah. So we got the padding here for the width. We'd have to take away quite a bit of that. So anyway, so that's with the padding there. Now it's got gaps there. That's great. So the padding adds to the width of it. So you have to watch out for that. So the more padding you add here, okay, the more padding that you add here, you're going to have to take that into account on the width side of things. Maybe your maths will be better than mine, so you can actually get it just precise as well. Great. Other things as well, if you need your text, like if I want my footer text to be centrally aligned, then you would use, if I'd go and there's my footer here, so I go to the top and then I would use, because this is an ID, hash footer, and then I would use text align center. Again, for our American cousins here, there you can see ER. So that adjusts there. That's great. Just think of other things that we can do. So say, for instance, I want to affect everything on the page, the whole lot, and background colors or background images. I would go normally at the top and I would maybe do this with body. So body, this body tag is affecting everything on the page. So that's everything between these body tags here, yeah? So if I go up here and I think, yeah, you know what, I want to have the whole page to be of a font type. So I'm going to type font hyphen family. I'm not going to go so much into the fonts here, but just use a font that everyone would use, you know, which would be good. Go down here. Say, for instance, that's it. So we can always test that one in. So the font family is now Arial there, and so on. That's good. So there we go. I think that's enough for the time being. I'm just going to stick this video up. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will add more videos. We've got to do the navigational bars. I'll try and do some drop-down navigational bars as well. Hyperlinks, of course, as well. Oh, just one little thing when it comes to the image, which is most important for accessibility, all about if you're visually impaired, how would you know what that image is about? When you would add the alt text in here, or alt attribute. So the alt attribute within those quotation marks, you would talk about maybe elephant, font. Okay, spelling's not great. As an I. There you go. Just not to be confused with what's known as the title tag. So, oops, it's on the outside these brackets here. So title, that is what appears when you hover over it. So, elephant's eye. So the title, this bit here, is what appears when you hover over the elephant. So when I hover over it like that and that elephant eye appears, yeah, that's the title. And the alt is the alt attributes, or the alt tag is if, say, for instance, you know, you're blind or visually impaired, you want to know what that's about. And the only really way to see that is if I misspell elephant and it can't find. There we go. And you see it comes up elephant's eye. That's the alt text that comes up. And the one that hovers up is the elephant eye there. That's good. Is the title. I think that's enough for the time being. So let me just save that, get that back there. I'll put the exercise files at the bottom so you can see that. And yeah, it's all coming together. So just get started so you can create this first web page, and this web page can then become a basis or a template so that you are able to start creating your website in HTML. Thank you so much for watching.